Hi, everyone. This is Becky Droz, and thank you so much for tuning into the Gorilla HR podcast. Today, we are going to talk about one of my favorite things, and that is animals. I am the proud mom of a 15-year-old rescue dog. I call her a puppy because they're all puppies in my mind. And she has been with us since she was a puppy. And I also have some goats, and I love all the animals. I want all of the animals to be in healthy, happy homes. And so I know it's not just me. I know that for a lot of people in the world, we do have our pets and they are most definitely part of our families. And so, in doing this podcast, typically my approach is, of course, about the HR side of things and what businesses are doing. But I have heard Karen Nichols, who is going to be our guest today, and she is the president of the Lancaster, South Carolina SPCA. I have heard her speak a couple of times. And I think that this whole concept of animals as being part of our family is actually a lot bigger than just our personal space, right? Because we bring our whole selves into workspaces. And so I have Karen on because one, I want her to tell us a little bit about, the mission and what she's doing and her work with SPCA, but also just to talk to her a little bit about what employers can be doing and how can we engage with our communities to help continue to support all of these awesome animals. So, Karen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am so thrilled that you are here. I think to start out, if you want to just tell us a little bit about the work that your organization is doing.
So, the Lancaster SPCA, as you mentioned, is in Lancaster County, South Carolina. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit rescue group. We focus on dogs and cats. We do save about 450 to 500 animals per year. And we are what we say is the primary rescue partner helping the Lancaster County Animal Shelter. So that's a county run operation. And we have a lot more flexibility being a nonprofit. So we can raise funds and things like that. And then, most importantly, we are an all volunteer organization. So that fits right with what you are talking about today.
Let's talk for a second about that funding piece because, as you mentioned, it's separate. You are not a government organization, you are a not for profit offering these services through the work of all the volunteers and all the fundraising that you do. So, talk to me a little bit about funding. How do you get funds and then how are they used?
So, funding is, we are constantly in fundraising mode. We do things big and small to raise money. We have like a large scale event, like we call it our Fur Ball Gala. And that really kicks us off for the calendar year. And, that's everything you would imagine: dinner, dancing, silent auction, live auction. And that is the biggest fundraiser for us. And then we do some events throughout the year. Like just this past weekend, we had a walk to raise money for heartworm treatments and medications for the shelter animals. And so that was utilizing the Lindsay Pettis Greenway here in Lancaster County and getting those shelter dogs out and about, meeting some people. In the fall, we probably will do our mini golf tournament again. We did that last fall for the first time, and it was a lot of fun. And then online, thank goodness for social media. We do raise a lot of money on social media. A lot of times the posts about like one particular animal that needs one particular surgery or something like that, that can raise a good bit of money for us when we need it the most. And then I write grants on behalf of the organization. So that's just another kind of leg on the stool. And then some sponsorships as well, corporate sponsorships just in general for the organization or for any of the events. We also have some sponsors for the events.
Do you feel like most of your funds come from individual donors or are they from bigger corporate sponsors?
Most of them are from individual donors. When we participate in what's called Give Local, which is like a one-day giving here in the area, we always have the highest number of unique donors or individual donors. So we're proud of that. And even if it's, a $10 donation, a $20 donation, it really adds up.
I think from the workplace too, for a lot of people, it's always good to check and see if the organization you work for does any kind of matching, because there are a lot of organizations that as part of their total rewards will say, well, you as employees tell us what's important to you. And so if they've donated, sometimes they've got that matching available. So I always tell people, like, look out for that. Don't leave free money on the table.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's usually the larger employers, of course, that do that. And I know, for example, Bank of America, we are regularly contacted because an employee gave a donation and we need to claim that match. So that's a good thing for you to be reminding people about.
Yes, for sure. And then from the corporate side too, I know because I've been on your website and I've attended some of these different events. There are definitely a lot of benefits to somebody being a corporate sponsor. Tell us a little bit about those.
Brand recognition is probably the thing that most corporate sponsors are looking for. And we have a really organic nature about our organization. We're just sort of homegrown, good folks doing good things. And so, companies can align themselves with us and get some exposure to, families and people that care about animals. And then if the company is specific to the animal industry, for example, Nutramax or something like that, they're getting additional exposure to maybe an audience they might not reach otherwise.
Yeah, that's something that I keep seeing in data that says that particularly with, Gen Z and some of the folks that are newer to the workforce is that they do look for organizations that are taking a stand or that are supporting different social issues. And so I think for one, if you want something that is maybe a little more neutral, like as an organization, certainly animals is one that I don't know who you're going to offend by supporting animals. So that seems like a good one to be like, yeah, we do care about our communities. We do care about the animals in it too.
Yes.
What is causing the need for all of these shelters and all of these services? Like, why do we have so many animals?
Yes. Well, it's, kind of a multi pronged issue, I guess. But first and foremost is spay neuter is not as prevalent in the southern states as it is in the northern states. And I don't know why that is. It's affordable. It's, pretty readily available. We offer a low cost voucher program that somebody can apply for and they contribute, $30 to $40 and we cover the rest. So we try to remove that barrier if financial considerations are a barrier. Unfortunately, there is a lot of what we call backyard breeding
Hmm.
where they just want their animal to have a litter and then they may sell those for as low as $30 to $50 or something like that. Of course, some people do try to go higher, but um, that is just, exploiting those animals. A lot of times they don't have the proper care. The mother doesn't have the veterinary care, and then the offspring certainly don't have the care either. And so you may be getting a low cost animal who is going to have, a lifetime of medical issues. And so a lot of times if that particular person can only sell, let's say there were 8 in a litter and they sold 6, they'll just dump the 2, sometimes on a back road.
Hmm.
Luckily, if they wind up at the shelter, that's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
how do they wind up at the shelter? Because you all don't have an actual facility. So how does all of that work?
So we do not have a facility. All of our animals are in foster homes. Basically, the county shelter is the place for strays. And so, if animal control picks up like a stray dog, for example, off of the street, they will take that animal to the county shelter. That is by law what is supposed to happen.
Hmm.
Because if that animal does belong to somebody who wants them back, the first place the owner is going to go looking for that lost animal is the county shelter.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the flow, the proper way of doing it, and there are laws about this. A lot of times, people they find an animal, they try to plead with us about, no, you need to take it because I don't want it to go to the shelter. And well, first of all, it's the law that they should go to the shelter, and then
Hmm.
secondly, sometimes the shelter is the best thing that ever happened to that animal if they've had a lifetime of neglect. They will get some initial medical care, and then the shelter is really good. The staff there is really good about working with multiple rescue groups, not just LSPCA, but up and
Hmm.
down the East Coast, actually. And, there are certain groups that will focus on taking specific types of animals, whatever appeals most to their adopters, and they get them through the system after they are held for the 5-day mandatory period. They are then free to move on, and they do their darndest to get placement for every animal that comes through. I will add that animal control does not pick up cats, free roaming cats. And that was a decision that was made a couple of years ago. And, it can be a little controversial, but cats are maybe a little better about surviving on their own. A lot of times they know where to go to find food. And if you've ever taken an outdoor cat and tried to put them inside and they do not want to be inside, you're asking for trouble. So that is why you'll see, like on social media, the dogs, it's a constant plea about getting them out, and they're not as inundated with cats, although it is kitten season right now.
So the county really serves as a gatekeeper, and I often think of a gatekeeper, and in my mind, I think of that in some ways as a negative word. But really, they're doing that initial screening and looking for medical issues, and for the safety of the animal, and then any family that they might be with. And then I love that they're working with a lot of different organizations like yours to help find foster homes and permanent homes.
They do a wonderful job.
And so you said that we, for some reason, have lower spay neuter, and we tend to have more animals down here. So do all of the animals that come in, however they get to you, or if they come from the county to you, do they stay in this area?
The majority that we get involved with end up being transported, mostly long distance to the Northeast. So New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, sometimes even Vermont.
Wow.
And the reason for that is those states have a handle on, the overpopulation issue. They don't have overpopulation issues. They've kind of tackled that spay neuter issue. And so they have availability to take in. And so we do, like, once a month, a big trip in our van, which could be anywhere from 20 to even 60 sometimes animals. And they all have commitment on the other side,
Mhm.
which is a process in and of itself. But that's how we handle most of our animals. Yes.
Okay. It's interesting that you say that. So my dog is a rescue dog, and when I got her, I was living in Delaware at the time, and she was being fostered by a family in Pennsylvania. And when we went to get her, we found out that she had actually come from South Carolina. So we had some kind of sketchy paperwork, but a little bit of paperwork that we showed some of the initial shots and things. But yeah, that's and now that I'm back down in South Carolina, I guess I brought her back to her roots.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
we did
thank
that.
you
Yeah.
for saving her.
Yes. Actually, it's kind of funny too. My husband and I had decided that we were going to get a dog, and we knew we were going to do a rescue. And so we had appointments to see two different dogs. And so one was on a Tuesday, one was on a Wednesday. And so while were driving to the Tuesday appointment, my husband is telling me, like, all puppies are cute. Right? Like, you agree with me. I'm like, of course they are. And he said, well, we're going to meet both dogs. We want to make sure we're getting the dog that's right for us and check out their personalities. And, just we're not going to jump into anything. And of course, we get to the first dog at the Tuesday appointment, and after spending half an hour there, I was like, "Can we take her home today? Like, I want her." And my husband just gave me this look, like, "Are you kidding me? Like, we literally just
We
talked
talked
about this."
about this, right?
But yeah, but she's been with us for 15 years, so I'd say it was a good choice.
That's wonderful.
Yes, yes, I love her. She's definitely my rescue baby for sure. So, what are some of the things that you find are hardest when it comes to working with volunteers? Because I know that you said, as a volunteer organization, that's where all of your labor and all of these different things that you're organizing are coming from. So I know we're switching gears a little bit here, but tell me a little bit about, how do you do that, running an organization that is all volunteer labor?
Yes, it can definitely be tricky. We all have other demands on our time, a paying job,
Mhm.
families, we have pets, and oftentimes we are fostering as well. So it is tricky, but you will, especially with animals, that you will just meet the most passionate, dedicated people, and it comes from inside. They want to help, and so they we'll find a way. And I mean, it's a lot of juggling, and a lot of times things might fall through at the last minute, and somebody has to pick it up. But like I said, they are just people that are there for the right reasons, and
Yeah.
so they make it work.
Do you find that most of your volunteers are regular where they have a commitment to do so many hours per month, or do you also have opportunities that are, special projects like one day kind of things?
We do have a mixture of both. Most of our volunteers are the ones that are day in and day out, or week in and week out, attempting to either, photographing the animals at the shelter. That is a huge thing that makes the difference between them being adopted and not. And it doesn't have to be a professional photographer. Nowadays your cell phone is so good. So we have a lot of people that just make a point to go to the shelter like once a week or something like that, get some of those photos, even just getting the dogs out of their kennel for 20 minutes, it makes a huge difference. And so there are like 3 different play yards at the shelter where you can take them into another enclosed area with toys and whatnot. But then we do have events, like I mentioned, our gala, and then some of the fundraising events. We also do periodically some pet food giveaways. And so if somebody really was just looking for a day here and a day there, maybe once a quarter or something like that, there are opportunities for that as well.
Yeah, I love that. So that people who want to make that full commitment have the opportunity to do so, but those that are also like, well, I don't know if I really can commit to something bigger, there are still those opportunities to be involved.
Definitely.
Love that. Love that. So what do you think are the things that short term we can do as a community to help? I don't know that we can immediately solve this problem of overpopulation of pets, but what are the things that in the short term we can be doing and helping you advocate for?
Oh, well, thank you for asking that. So, short term, spreading the word about spay and neuter. Bob Barker's gone, unfortunately. Maybe people need reminders. I don't know.
Yeah.
Let them know that we have this program. It's available all year long. They just go on our website, fill out an application. We try to make it as streamlined as possible. So just for
Especially knowing the voucher, because I would think that the cost is one of the things that could be the barrier for people, and I'm sure that all across the country, there are organizations that are willing to help with those low-cost clinics or vouchers.
That's right. That's right. I just spoke with a rescue colleague in New York City, and she said for a small dog spay, it was like $900. And I said,
Wow.
what on earth? I mean,
Wow.
down here, it's maybe $125 or something like that. And then with our voucher, of course, it's only a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So another shorter term thing where people can get involved is fostering. So
Mhm.
that is huge for us, in particular LSPCA, since we don't have a shelter facility. We can only take in the animals that we have somewhere for them to go.
Yeah.
And so, having animals in your home for a couple of weeks to a month or maybe 6 weeks makes all the difference in the world. That since we do those transports, like I talked about earlier, oftentimes we know the day they are leaving, because I think people hesitate to foster
Yeah.
because they think I'm going to get stuck with this animal forever. And, or they know they have a vacation coming up or something like that. And with our transport program, a lot of times we know when they're leaving already. So
I'm glad you said that because I did not know that, and I have had the thought about fostering, but I've thought, well, I don't know how long it's gonna last, but the reality is you do often know.
yes, that's right.
Yeah, so that's a good piece of information. Yeah.
And even, sometimes we need vacation fosters. So, because we have our core group of fosters, but if they're going on vacation, we may need somewhere for those animals to go for just like a week. And we know the beginning date, the end date. We know, that they've already been in a home successfully. We know they're already vaccinated. So that really would be a very limited commitment, but something that's so important because a lot of times our fosters will say, well, I want to foster, but I know that I'm out of town from this day to this day. And then
Mhm.
it takes that home out completely. And unless we have a vacation foster.
And how often do you have foster fails? Because that's my other fear.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, it does happen, and I would say maybe 4 or 5 a year
Okay.
is from but a lot of times I just like to say, the animal wound up where they were supposed to be anyway. But with the transport program, again, they already have a commitment. And
Yeah.
so we can say, like, this animal is not available. And I don't care if you fall in love or not, because we've
Yeah.
already promised them. And I've had to do that before. And I've had people get mad at me. But because they were already committed, we cannot jeopardize those relationships. Because a lot of times on the transport, when the animals arrive up north, they already have an adoption
Yeah.
waiting for them, an adopted home. And so
Yeah.
you can't break that person's heart.
I know I have a good friend, and she and her family will foster, and they have had a couple where they've come in and they said, the first time it was hard to let the dog go, and then they said it's gotten easier. But then at one point, then one of their own animals did pass, and they said, well, we now have capacity. So they were like, well, if there's another animal that we foster that is a good fit, then we will keep it. So I think they had one that didn't get along with everybody else, and they said, nope, then this one's not for us. And the next one came in, and they said, all right, then we'll keep this one. So
Yes,
they've been involved and, definitely made sure that they've gotten another pet that really, really fits for their family and life. So I
that's
love that.
right. Yes.
Yes. Well, I'm getting more excited about fostering now that I'm learning these things.
Good, great. We'd love to have you.
And what are some of the things on a more long term, as we get out of what do we do right now, but what are some things that we can be doing to help solve for this on a longer term plan?
Well, adoption is always helpful. That's more of a commitment, and from a rescue group, from a legitimate rescue group, from something that you're finding on the internet, or even if they say, oh, well, it's AKC registered. I mean, that you're buying from a breeder, bottom
Hmm.
line. And so to consider the rescued ones versus the ones that have been bred to be bought. We're dipping our toe right now into more advocacy type work and looking at the ordinances that may need to be updated and changed. We know that that is a longer term solution, and it may get a little sticky at times. People don't like to be told what to do and that sort of a thing. So we are really just starting to identify a core group of people who would be willing to, kind of advocate at the county council meeting or that sort of a thing. But that's really where you're going to get the most change or the most impact.
Yeah, I've heard that on a lot of topics that really getting involved from a local government standpoint is where you can really start to have the biggest impact on making change. So I think that is a good thing to remember too. I know it is easy to be kind of out of sight, out of mind, and just go about your daily life and do your thing. But I think that's also a really good reminder there.
Yes.
Well, is there anything else that you would like our listeners to know about the SPCA and the work that you all are doing with animals?
I just think if people want to try something and find their niche, you don't have to be sucked into everything. You can kind of find what works for you, and you will find it to be the most rewarding experience, I think.
I love that. Well, Karen, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us. I know that, of course, as a pet lover myself and as an employer, and also as one who helps advocate and works with other organizations, that look for something that you can be involved in from a corporate side, whether that's volunteer time and creating an event for your employees to get out there, or allowing people to spend a couple hours a month to go and volunteer. So lots of different ways to get involved and to really support this effort. And of course, that makes our communities nicer places to be. So Karen, again, thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning into the Gorilla HR podcast.
That's it for this episode of the Gorilla HR podcast. We hope you found some unconventional wisdom and actionable advice to help you in your own HR journey. Remember, we're all working together to build better workplaces. Want to join in the conversation? Send us your questions, stories, and maybe even your own guerrilla tactics to podcast@gorilla-hr.com. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, subscribe, and share with your network. Until next time.